So let's talk about trade and economics, which are the issues that's topping President Mukherjee's agenda during his China visit. And President Mukherjee has been calling for greater market access of Indian products and also more Chinese investment in his country. So what specific areas do you think the two countries can focus on, Dr. Li?
Yeah, I think actually, economic cooperation definitely is the priority of our bilateral relations. As you know, 2 years back when our President Xi Jinping visited India, the two countries reached a consensus that we will put the development cooperation or partnership as the core of our bilateral relations. I think there are definitely a lot of potential for us to cooperation. As you know, we are the two emerging economies. So now India is trying to develop their infrastructure and the Making Indian campaign. Mm-hmm. So I think those the area China are very strong. So I think that's the area we can cooperate.
Yeah. Well, the two countries are trying to tap into the full potential of this economic partnership. Now, I'd like to ask you this, Mr. Nalapat, what are the expectations from Indian companies in trying to renew and strengthen this partnership?
Well, the expectation is that the Chinese will give access to the Chinese market and especially state-owned enterprises. We have found, for example, that our information technology firms, to my knowledge, there's almost no state-owned enterprise that has given any contract to Indian IT companies. Indian IT companies in China have got as customers foreign companies operating in China. So IT is a major factor. Pharmaceuticals. I mean, India is the hub of a very low cost but high quality pharmaceutical industry, and certainly Chinese healthcare will be significantly improved if pharmaceuticals are given greater access to China. Of course, on the Indian side, for example, now under Prime Minister Modi, India will welcome Chinese investment and Chinese tourism. These were not regarded as priorities by the previous government, but Prime Minister Modi has made them priorities. So I would say that investment into India and tourism from China into India will be very welcome by my country.
All right, and Ms. Curtis, I'd like to ask your insights on this. How do you see this economic partnership of these two biggest emerging economies?
Well, I think it's very significant that they are both focusing on the economic relationship and not talking about some of the issues that have been filled with tension over the last couple of years, the border tensions, as you mentioned, the maritime competition, but rather they're focusing on the potential for building the economic and trade partnership. And we have to acknowledge there is enormous potential there. The fact that trade has grown from under 1 billion in 2000 to 72 billion last year, trading goods between the two countries, exceeding the trade between India and the US, which was about 66 billion last year. So clearly there is enormous potential, but I think they're going to have to narrow this trade deficit. This is very important to India. The fact that the trade deficit was about 44 billion now in China's favor. Mm-hmm. And I agree with Professor Nalapat that Prime Minister Modi has made it a priority in his relations with China to try to increase Chinese investment in India. This was a major part of his visit last year to Beijing, trying to encourage Chinese investment in the pharmaceutical sector, the agriculture sector, auto parts. And I think President Mukherjee's visit now is an extension of that effort. So I think this is positive. There's enormous potential there. And I think that we'll see that trade relationship just continue to grow.
All right. Actually, China and India have many initiatives and strategies that echo with one another. So now we have some specific information for you to understand the trade structure between the two countries.
As part of Prime Minister Modi's Make in India policy, the Indian tech startup scene has been buzzing with services and products around the Internet of Things, and its 100 Smart Cities initiative is working to transform India into a digitally empowered economy. This has similarities to China's Made in China 2025 strategy to comprehensively upgrade Chinese industry. And while Chinese companies with inherent strengths in infrastructure and manufacturing are going global, they are looking towards India as an important destination. In fact, the bilateral trade between India and China has grown steadily since the turn of this century, from less than $3 billion in 2000 to more than $70 billion in 2014.
So on the one hand, we know that China and India have a lot of areas that complement each other in areas such as drugs and pharmaceuticals. But on the other hand, there are a lot of initiatives, for example, the Make in India and the Made in China 2025, that could have potential rivalry. So how competitive can their economic relations be, Dr. Li?
Actually, in terms of the, Make in India campaign, I think the idea for, I think from the Indian side is that, there's a large population there. I think it's a must for the Indian, provide the large population, especially the young, population, the youngsters, for more employment. So I think in that sense, maybe, I don't think, they, just as I mentioned just now, I don't think there are, more competition. Actually, I think there are more potential for us, because I think the China-India, bilateral economic relations is just at the very beginning stage. So I think there's a lot of room for us to cooperation. Actually, as you know, during our President Xi Jinping's visit to India, we reached quite a lot of, consensus to strengthen our cooperation in areas like the railway, like the clean energy, and also, smart cities, So I think actually there are a lot of areas for us to, cooperate.
And actually the two countries share a lot of similarities. For example, this huge population base, they're both emerging economies, they both want to upgrade their manufacturing abilities and to transform into innovation hubs. So Mr. Nalapat, what do you see as the advantages that these two countries share?
Well, I'll tell you China's advantage. Any visitor to China is struck by the very good infrastructure that China has built, and so you have a lot of capacity there for building infrastructure, which is now possible to be used elsewhere, because a lot of the infrastructure needs of the major cities in China have already been met. In the case of India, our infrastructure needs are huge. I mean, we are exactly where China was, I would say, in the middle of the 1980s. So their Chinese companies have a very strong market. They have got a very strong market in telecom, because they're very cost competitive with their European and American and other competitors, and even their Korean competitors. They have a very strong market in energy systems, whether it is thermal energy or it's non-conventional energy. China has got a very, very high technological base, especially over the last 8 or 10 years. Chinese technology has advanced very much. So I agree with Dr. Li that there is immense potential, and my estimate has been not 70 billion, but about $300 billion as an equilibrium point for India-China trade.
Well, Ms. Curtis, I'd like to know this, because we understand that China has been a labor-intensive outsourcing destination, and now it's undergoing quite a painful transition into an innovation hub. India, on the other hand, has some very advanced technology and innovation bases. So do you think that India will be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that China has experienced?
Well, I think India has done very well with regard to its IT sector, but where India needs to focus more attention is its manufacturing base, and that's the whole purpose behind Prime Minister Modi's Make in India campaign. So I think that each country has different advantages, but with regard to India, I think Prime Minister Modi has done a pretty good job in marketing India and assuring investors that he will provide a more business-friendly environment. And so as a result, we've seen foreign direct investment increase in India. In fact, I think India is now the largest destination for foreign investment. And so this is very positive. Now, on the negative side of the ledger, I think people have been disappointed that Prime Minister Modi has not been able to push forward with really transformative structural reforms to the economy. And here I'm talking about labor reform, tax reform. He has two major bills that his government proposed. One, the Goods and Services Tax Bill, which would streamline the tax system, and another, the Land Acquisition Bill, which would make it easier for businesses to acquire land. Both of these are very important pieces of legislation, but unfortunately they're still in Parliament, and he's not been able to pass them or get political support to pass these through the Parliament. So, I think that he is doing a good job in marketing India, making the business environment more friendly for private investment, but there has been some disappointment in terms of economic reforms.
All right, and now let's turn to the diplomatic front. We understand that India has been very active on the diplomatic front. Prime Minister Modi has been traveling to much of the world, and he'll be embarking on his fourth visit to the United States very soon as Prime Minister. So what do you make of India's effort to try to expand its reach to the other parts of the world, and is it more of political or economic considerations, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, I think they are, the considerations are both, from the both fronts. I think because, India is Asian power. It has, very, big, influential regional and also global influence. Politically speaking, India, used to be the biggest, maybe the powerful, country in Asia, and also during the Nehru era, India was very, very powerful. So I think India has its strength. Maybe it's Professor Nalapat. He will give you more detailed description of the Indians' aspiration as a big power in the world. Mm-hmm. Secondly, definitely it's from the economic front. I think there are a lot of reasons for India to extend its relations with the world. India actually is an emerging power. I think they need more investment. That's why just now Professor Curtis she said that Modi is very well in marketing India. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of reasons, both politically and economically.
Right, let's focus a little bit more on the political front. So Mr. Nalapat, India is a very important neighbor to China, and so is Pakistan. And in fact, China recently pledged to invest $45 billion to Pakistan on this China-Pakistan economic corridor. And as you know, tension is ongoing between Pakistan and India. So what do you think of China's subtle stance here in trying to balance the relations between Pakistan and India to maintain good relations with both countries?
Well, I'd like to say that I think the relationship between India and China is independent of the relationship with any other country. And so far as Pakistan is concerned and the corridor is concerned, I have been of the view that I think there should be a proposal for an India-China economic corridor, at least the same size, if not much bigger than the Pakistan corridor. And we'll let economics decide which of these corridors is successful over the next 10 or 15 years. So I think there's scope for an India-China economic corridor as well. I want to point out that I think it's important to understand that India is a billion-plus country, China is a billion-plus country. India and China are unique in many ways, and I think it would be, analytically, I think they need to be analyzed as a separate entity from any other country. We remember China, for example. The Americans analyzed China in the 1970s as a unique country. And I think it's now, I am fully expecting under the very wise leadership of President Xi Jinping that China will look at India as a unique country and in diplomacy do for India-China relations what happened in the 1970s between the US and China.
Let's also get some U.S. perspective into this, the relationship between China, U.S. and India. Earlier, India joined the U.S.-led naval exercises on the South China Sea, and as I mentioned earlier, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be traveling to the U.S. very soon. And some analysts say that the closer India and U.S. become, the more likely it'll push China to Pakistan. So do you agree with this, Ms. Curtis?
Well, I think there is a sort of geopolitical dance going on between India, US, China, and that does involve Pakistan. And, you know, as you mentioned, Prime Minister Modi is coming to the US, his 4th visit in less than 2 years. This is pretty significant. He'll be meeting with President Obama. He'll be making an address to a joint session of the US Congress. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to showcase how much the U.S.-India relationship has progressed in just the last 2 years. But when it comes to the impact on the India-China relationship, I think China is watching very closely how close India is getting to the U.S. And, you know, there is some jockeying going on here. But I think India will try to use that concern from China to try to draw China away from Pakistan, because of course India is very concerned about close China-Pakistan strategic and military cooperation being in the middle of these two countries. And when things happen such as China blocking the India's attempts to ban terrorist leader Masood Azhar, this is the leader of the terrorist group that was responsible for the attack on the Indian air base in January. When things like that happen, I think the Indians are very concerned. So I think India will seek to try to, you know, draw China away from its tight partnership with Pakistan. And part of the way is to increase the economic ties between the two countries. Mm-hmm. But I think certainly you will continue to see this kind of jockeying.
Well, certainly there are a lot of geopolitical considerations going on, but back to President Mukherjee's visit here to China, he is also raising some thorny issues, very sensitive issues, for example, the border disputes with China. So do you think that the two countries are likely to make a breakthrough on that, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, I think on the border issue, actually, the consensus already there between China and India that you know, we should be patient, you know, on that issue, because you know, it's not an easy issue. We have to, because we already set actually a framework how to, you know, have it solved. We have that mechanism like the special representatives, and we have set up 3 stages. Now we are in the 2nd one. We have reached the guiding principle, and now we are in the 2nd stage to you know, find the framework, and then the final stage. Right. But yeah, actually I don't think at the moment there will be a, you know, big breakthrough. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's you know, objective one.
But at least China and India have the political will to work this out. Definitely. And it'll require all the political wisdom to eventually solve this issue. Well, I'd like to thank our panel here, Dr. Li joining us in the Beijing studio, and also in New Delhi, Mr. Madhav Nalapat, and in Washington, D.C., Ms. Lisa Curtis. Thank you so much for your insights on this.